Hello, everybody. My name is Michael Brown, and I'm doing this presentation on how different apps influence our language decisions. I'm doing this presentation because I've always noticed that on different apps, I personally use language much differently depending on what the app is. And I was wanting to explore that within the context of course concepts such as frames and scripts and signs. I also had an interesting interview with one of my good friends, Marcus, that I wanted to evolve into this presentation and yeah, it's to tell you guys. Like I said, I've noticed that I always communicate differently on different apps. Like I'll communicate differently on iMessages versus Instagram versus Snapchat. Like I've always wondered like certain questions about like why do people send images on Instagram and Snapchat, but less so on iMessage, or why do people text formally on one app but informally on another? And one of the first concepts I wanted to use to describe that is the concept of frames. We get frames from the Agar readings. The frames are basically a set of expectations for like conversation within like a certain context. Like what Professor Dent said, there's the lecture frame versus the discussion frame versus the study group frame. And in the same vein, there's the Instagram frame versus the Snapchat frame versus the iMessage frame. Like I know personally, I feel different frames on different apps, and thus will communicate differently on there. Another concept that is interesting about in this regard is the concept of an script. An script is basically just an inscription of that additional conversation leaves behind, like we learned from Jones and Shefflin. And I personally know that my different scripts look much different depending on the app that I'm using. Another concept that I wanted to talk about is the sign. The sign involves both the signified and the signifier. The signifier being something that identifies the signified. According to Charles Sanders Peirce, signs can fall into three categories: an index, which is basically pointing at something; an icon, which looks like or sounds like something else; and a symbol, which can represent different things in a variety of ways. And is what I'm going to talk about here. In different apps, images can symbolize a bunch of different things and be like their own form of communication. I know on Instagram, I could send a friend like an I love you best friend image that conveys a different message than I would be able to convey just through my writing. In the same vein, like I could send my friend a picture of what I'm doing, and that would function similarly to if I just texted out, I'm doing this today. Something else that I've noticed is how empty texts and snaps or whatever can convey double meanings. Like, what are you doing? Hey, I mean, different things. They can symbolize, hey, I want to do something with you, rather than I'm physically wondering what you're doing. Finally, I wanted to talk about my friend Marcus. He conveyed a lot of the similar messages to what I conveyed. And basically, he said that language and messaging for him, are more formal on some apps, such as iMessages, and are much more informal on other apps, such as Snapchat. Marcus also agreed that images that are sent, like on Snapchat or Instagram, can convey double meanings. And there's a lot more to images than what's physically said. And I think through all of this, like through frames and signs and what I talked about with Marcus, I think that I've proved that the different apps that we're on can convey different meanings. And the language that we can use on those different apps means very different things. Yeah, that's my presentation. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I will see you later.